The scent of garlic and basil clung to my uniform like a second skin, mixing with the sharp tang of dish soap that had cracked my hands raw. I'd been on my feet for 11 hours straight at Costello's, the kind of upscale Italian restaurant where the white tablecloths cost more than my weekly paycheck. My lower back screamed with each step, but I kept moving, kept smiling, kept pretending I didn't notice how the wealthy patrons looked through me as if I were part of the furniture. "Table 7 needs water," Marco barked from behind the bar, not bothering to look up. I nodded, grabbing the crystal pitcher even though my arms felt like lead. Table 7. The corner booth. The one that had been reserved for 3 weeks straight, every Friday night, always for the same party. I'd served them twice before, a group of impeccably dressed men who spoke in low murmurs and left tips that could cover my rent. But I'd learned quickly not to look too closely, not to listen too intently, not to exist beyond the function of bringing food and clearing plates. The dining room hummed with Friday evening energy, crystal clinking against china, soft laughter, the gentle scratch of violins from the quartet in the corner, warm amber light spilled from vintage fixtures, casting everything in a golden glow that made the wealthy look even more untouchable. I wound between tables, the pitcher growing heavier with each step, my sensible black flat squeaking slightly against the polished marble floor. Then I felt it. A shift in the atmosphere, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. He walked in. I didn't see him at first. I heard him. Or rather, I heard the reaction to him. Conversation stuttered. The hostess's voice climbed half an octave. Even the violinists seemed to play softer, as if the music itself was bowing. My eyes found him against my better judgment. He moved through the restaurant like he owned it, which I'd later learn he actually did. Tall, lean, but built in a way that suggested coiled strength beneath the midnight blue suit that probably cost more than my car. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in old Renaissance paintings. Sharp jaw, straight nose, lips that seemed carved from marble, but it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Dark, almost black, and utterly cold. They swept the room with the practiced assessment of a predator cataloging prey. 2 men flanked him, built like walls in matching dark suits, their eyes constantly moving, hands resting near their jackets in a way that made my stomach tighten. I knew that posture. I'd grown up in a neighborhood where that posture meant danger. Mr. Marchetti, the owner Giovanni, appeared from nowhere, practically trembling as he rushed forward. "Your table is ready, of course. Everything as you requested, Marchetti." The name settled in my chest like a stone. Even I, who avoided gossip and kept my head down, had heard whispers about the Marchetti family. Old money, new power. The kind of people you didn't cross, didn't question, didn't even look at directly if you valued your safety. I should have turned away, should have focused on table 7, on the water I was supposed to pour, on staying invisible the way I'd perfected over years of survival. But for just a heartbeat, I stared, and he looked back. His eyes locked onto mine across the crowded restaurant, and I felt it like a physical touch. A cold finger trailing down my spine. Time seemed to slow, the sounds around me muffled, like I'd been plunged under water. Those dark eyes held mine, unblinking, assessing, and I saw something flicker in their depths. Curiosity? No. Something sharper. Something that made my pulse spike with an instinct older than thought. Run. I broke the gaze first, my cheeks burning as I jerked my attention back to the pitcher in my trembling hands. My heart hammered against my ribs. Stupid. So stupid. You don't make eye contact with men like that. You don't draw their attention. You don't exist. I reached table 7 on unsteady legs, forcing my hands to remain steady as I poured water into crystal glasses. The ice cubes clinked too loudly in the sudden silence that had fallen over this corner of the restaurant. I could feel eyes on me, his eyes, burning into my back like brands. "Thank you, sweetheart," one of the men at table 7 said, his hand landing on my lower back as I leaned over to fill the last glass. I flinched. Couldn't help it. The touch was familiar in the worst way. Possessive, presumptuous, the kind that came from men who saw servers as part of the ambiance they'd paid for. "You're new here, aren't you?" he continued, his hand sliding lower. "I would have remembered a pretty thing like you." My throat closed. I wanted to move, to step away, but I was trapped between his chair and the table, his hand a hot brand through the thin fabric of my uniform. "I've been here 3 months, sir," I managed, my voice smaller than I wanted. "Can I get you anything else?" "Your number would be—" His voice cut off abruptly. The hand disappeared from my back so fast I stumbled, catching myself on the edge of the table. The crystal glasses rattled ominously. The temperature in the room had dropped 10 degrees. I looked up to find Marchetti standing 3 feet away, and the expression on his face made my blood freeze. He wasn't looking at me. His gaze was fixed on the man who'd touched me, and there was nothing cold about his eyes now. They blazed with something dark and terrible, a rage so controlled it was more frightening than any explosion could have been. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice soft as silk and sharp as a blade, "I believe you're finished here." It wasn't a suggestion. The man who'd touched me had gone pale, his earlier confidence evaporating like steam. "Mr. Marchetti, I didn't realize—" "Leave." One word, spoken quietly. But every person at table 7 scrambled to their feet like the seats had caught fire. They threw bills on the table, far too many bills, and fled toward the exit without another word, without even collecting their coats. I stood frozen, the empty pitcher clutched to my chest like a shield, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Marchetti turned to me, and I nearly stopped breathing. Up close, he was even more devastating. His cologne reached me, something expensive and dark, cedar and smoke with an undertone of something dangerously sweet. The overhead light caught flecks of amber in his black eyes, and I realized with a jolt that he wasn't much older than me. Late 20s, maybe 30 at most. Far too young to carry the weight of authority that rolled off him in waves. "Are you all right?" His voice had changed, the razor edge softened into something almost gentle. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My hands were shaking, making the pitcher rattle. He noticed. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and he raised one hand in a subtle gesture. Immediately, one of his guards appeared with a chair, positioning it behind me. "Sit." "I can't," I whispered. "I'm working. My manager will not say a word." He didn't raise his voice, didn't look toward where Marco stood gaping behind the bar, but somehow the message was clear. "Sit. Please." The please surprised me more than anything else. I sank into the chair before my legs could give out, setting the pitcher on the nearest table. He remained standing, a dark tower between me and the rest of the world, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him despite the chill in his eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. I shouldn't tell him. Every instinct screamed at me to lie, to give him any name but my own, but those eyes held mine, and I found myself answering, "Emma. Emma Torres. Emma." The way he said it, slow and deliberate, made it sound like something precious, something he was tasting. "How long have you worked here?" 3 months, sir." The honorific slipped out automatically, a remnant of a childhood spent learning when to show deference. Something flickered across his face. "Not sir. Dante." Dante. The name fit him. Beautiful and dangerous, heaven and hell wrapped in Italian syllables. "Has anyone else touched you like that?" The question came sharp as a knife, and beneath the softness I heard steel. "Here, working. Sometimes. It's just part of the job. People get—" "No." He cut me off, the single word cracking through the air like a whip. Around us, the restaurant had gone deathly quiet. Even the violins had stopped. "It is not part of any job. Do you understand?" I nodded, mute, drowning in the intensity of his gaze. He studied me for a long moment, and I felt stripped bare under that scrutiny, like he was reading every secret I'd ever kept, every fear, every desperate hope. Then he turned to one of his guards. "Marcus, you saw what happened here?" "Yes, sir." The guard's voice was a low rumble. "The man who touched her. Find out who he is, where he works, everything." Dante's voice had gone cold again, empty of emotion. "Make sure he understands that his behavior was inappropriate." The guard nodded and melted back into the shadows near the entrance. I should have felt vindicated, protected. Instead, ice settled in my stomach. "Make sure he understands." The words were innocuous, but the delivery promised violence. "That's not necessary," I tried, pushing to my feet on trembling legs. "Really, it's fine. He didn't—" Dante's hand came up, and I froze. He didn't touch me, just held his palm up between us, a gesture that was somehow both gentle and absolute. "What's necessary is that you never have to endure that again." His eyes found mine, and I saw something burn in their depths that made my breath catch. "Do you understand, Emma? Never again." The way he said my name, the possession in it, the certainty, should have terrified me. Instead, treacherous warmth bloomed in my chest, unfurling like a poisonous flower. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." A smile ghosted across his lips, there and gone so fast I might have imagined it. "Don't I?" Before I could respond, Giovanni rushed over, his face flushed and nervous. "Mr. Marchetti, your table is ready, and please, the lady's meal tonight, it's on the house, naturally." "The lady isn't dining." Dante's eyes never left mine. "She's working, but I'll require her station moved to Section 5. The section nearest his private booth. The section where I'd see him, serve him, exist in his orbit." Of course," Giovanni babbled, already snapping his fingers at Marco. "Miss Torres will be reassigned immediately." "That's not—" I started, but Dante was already moving away, his guards forming a human shield around him as he walked toward the corner booth. The restaurant seemed to exhale as he passed, conversations resuming in careful murmurs. He didn't look back, but I felt the weight of his attention like chains wrapping around my ribs, binding me to something I didn't understand and couldn't escape. Marco appeared at my elbow, his earlier surliness replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "You're on Section 5 for the rest of the night. Don't screw this up, Torres. Whatever you did to get his attention, just keep him happy." I nodded numbly, my mind reeling. What had I done? I'd made eye contact, let a customer touch me, existed in the wrong place at the wrong time, and somehow, impossibly, caught the attention of the most dangerous man in the city. As I gathered my composure and headed toward Section 5, my reflection caught in one of the ornate mirrors lining the walls. I looked small in my plain uniform, my dark hair escaping its practical bun, exhaustion carved into the shadows under my eyes. Ordinary. Invisible. But in the mirror's edge, I could see Dante's booth, and even though he was surrounded by his men, even though he appeared to be deep in conversation, I knew with bone-deep certainty that he was aware of my every movement. I'd spent my whole life trying to disappear, to stay safe by staying unseen. Tonight, I'd been seen, and I had the terrible feeling that nothing would ever be the same. The weekend passed in a blur of anxious dreams and restless pacing in my cramped studio apartment. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those dark eyes fixed on me, felt the phantom weight of his attention pressing down on my chest like a stone. By Monday morning, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined the entire thing, the intensity, the threat wrapped in protection, the way he'd said my name like he owned it. Almost. I arrived at Costello's for the lunch shift with my stomach in knots, half hoping and half dreading that Friday night had been an aberration. Maybe he only came on weekends. Maybe I'd never see him again. Maybe I could go back to being invisible. The kitchen was chaos as always, steam rising from pots, the rapid-fire Spanish curses from the line cooks mixing with the clatter of dishes. I tied my apron with shaking fingers, trying to focus on the familiar routine. Monday lunch was usually slow, mostly business meetings and lonely businessmen nursing single glasses of wine while they pretended to work on their laptops. Torres. Marco's voice made me jump. He jerked his head toward the dining room. Section 5. Again. My heart stuttered. But I thought, "You thought wrong. Boss's orders. You're on 5 until further notice." He looked at me with something between curiosity and resentment. "Whatever you did to catch Marchetti's eye, it's turned your whole employment situation around. Congratulations or condolences. I haven't decided which." Neither had I. The lunch crowd trickled in slowly. I moved through my tables on autopilot, smiling and nodding and reciting specials I'd memorized weeks ago. But my attention kept drifting to the corner booth, empty, waiting, like an open mouth ready to swallow me whole. He didn't come for lunch. The afternoon stretched long and quiet, giving me too much time to think, to remember, to wonder what I'd stepped into. By the time the dinner shift started, I'd almost relaxed. Then the air changed. I was refilling water glasses at table 12 when I felt it. That same electrical charge, that primal awareness that something apex had entered the room. My hands stilled, water cascading over the rim of a glass I'd overfilled. The elderly woman sitting there made a small sound of complaint, but I barely heard her. Dante walked through the entrance like he was walking into his own home. Same midnight suit, or one identical to it. Same predatory grace. Same guards flanking him like extensions of his shadow. But tonight, his eyes found me immediately, across the entire dining room, through the scattered tables and dim lighting and deliberate maze of the restaurant's layout. He found me like I was the only thing in the room worth looking at. Heat flooded my cheeks. I jerked my attention back to the table, apologizing profusely to the woman whose lap I'd nearly drenched, mopping up water with shaking hands. When I finally dared to glance back toward the entrance, he was being seated at his usual booth, but his gaze remained locked on me. Watching. Always watching. "Miss?" A man at table 14 was trying to get my attention. "Could we order?" I forced myself to focus, to take orders and deliver food and maintain the careful choreography of service. But I was hyper-aware of the corner booth, of the low murmur of male voices, of the way conversations seemed to lean toward Dante's table like plants bending toward the sun, or moths drawn to flame. An hour into dinner service, Giovanni appeared at my elbow, his expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Marchetti has requested you specifically for his table tonight." My throat went dry. "What?" "You'll be serving his party exclusively. Leave your other tables to Maria." He pressed a small notepad into my hands. "And Emma? Be professional. Be polite. Don't ask questions." The warning in his voice was clear. I nodded, my pulse thrumming in my ears as I approached the corner booth on legs that felt disconnected from my body. 5 men sat around the curved leather seating, but Dante commanded the space effortlessly. He sat at the center, one arm draped along the back of the booth, his long fingers drumming a slow rhythm against the leather. The men surrounding him were older, harder, their faces marked by violence and years. They fell silent as I approached. "Good evening." My voice came out steadier than I'd expected. "Can I start you with drinks?" "Whiskey," one of the older men said, not looking at me. "Macallan 25 neat." I scribbled the order, working my way around the table. Dante waited until I reached him, until I had no choice but to meet those dark eyes. "What would you recommend, Emma?" The use of my name, casual and intimate, made something flutter dangerously in my chest. "The Barolo is excellent tonight, Mr. Marchetti." "Dante," he corrected softly. "And I'll trust your judgment. Bring me whatever you'd choose." It was a test. I knew it instinctively, felt the weight of it. The other men at the table were watching me now, their attention sharp and assessing. One wrong move, one sign of presumption or fear, and I'd fail some invisible evaluation. "The Tignanello, then," I said, holding his gaze. 2016. It's bold, but balanced, complex. Something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe, or amusement. "Perfect." I fled to the bar on trembling legs, my skin burning where his gaze had touched. Marco poured the drinks with unusual care, arranging them on a tray with hands that shook slightly. "You know what he is, right?" Marco whispered as I waited. "What they all are? I don't ask questions," I replied, echoing Giovanni's warning. "Smart girl. Keep it that way." Carrying the tray back felt like walking a tightrope. The restaurant seemed too quiet, too many eyes tracking my progress. I distributed drinks with practiced efficiency, saving Dante's wine for last. As I poured, I was acutely aware of how close I had to stand, how the scent of his cologne wrapped around me, cedar and smoke and something darker, like expensive leather and danger. "Thank you," he said softly, and his fingers brushed mine as he took the glass. The contact lasted less than a second, but I felt it everywhere. A shock of heat that raced up my arm and settled somewhere dangerous in my chest. I pulled back too quickly, nearly dropping the tray. His lips curved into the ghost of a smile. The dinner progressed in a haze of tension. I brought appetizers, entrees, cleared plates with mechanical precision. The men talked business in voices too low for me to catch specifics, but I heard enough. Names, numbers, territories. The language of power and violence wrapped in corporate euphemisms. I kept my face blank, my attention carefully divided. Don't listen. Don't remember. Don't become a liability. But I felt Dante's eyes on me constantly, tracking my movements like a hawk watching prey. Every time I approached the table, the conversation would pause. Every time I left, I felt the weight of his stare burning into my back. It was almost a relief when dessert finally came. I set the tiramisu in front of him with steady hands, ready to retreat to the safety of distance. Stay. His voice was quiet, but absolute. I froze, the empty tray clutched against my chest. Sir? Dante, he corrected, that same gentle steel in his tone. And I said stay. Just for a moment. The other men exchanged glances, but no one spoke. One by one, they rose from the table, gathering their jackets and phones with the coordinated efficiency of a well-trained unit. Within seconds, I was alone with Dante in the corner booth, his guards maintaining a discreet perimeter that gave the illusion of privacy. Sit, he said, gesturing to the space beside him. I can't. I'm working. You're doing what I ask. No threat in the words, just certainty. Sit, Emma. My legs folded before my brain could protest, lowering me onto the leather beside him. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel his heat, smell that intoxicating cologne. Close enough that my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. You're afraid of me, he observed, swirling the wine in his glass. Should I be? That depends. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. Are you planning to lie to me, betray me, put yourself in danger? No, I don't even know you. Then you have nothing to fear. He took a slow sip of wine, his gaze never leaving mine. This wine. You chose well. How did you know? I've learned to read people, I admitted. What they want, what suits them. And what did you read in me? Danger. Power. A darkness that should send me running. Complexity, I said instead. Layers. His smile was small, private. He set down his glass and leaned back, studying me with unsettling focus. Tell me about yourself, Emma Torres. Where are you from? What brought you to my restaurant? My restaurant. The casual possession in those words. I grew up in the South Side, I said carefully. My father worked construction, my mother cleaned houses. They're gone now. Car accident 3 years ago. I've been on my own since. Something flickered across his face. Too quick to read. No siblings? No family? An aunt in Nevada. We don't talk. I twisted my fingers together in my lap. Why are you asking me this? Because I want to know you. He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like powerful men interrogated their servers every day. Because from the moment you looked at me Friday night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. The confession hit me like a physical blow. My breath caught, my pulse skittering wildly. You can't just say things like that. Why not? It's the truth. He shifted slightly closer, and I felt trapped between his body and the booth, pinned by proximity and intensity. Do you know what I saw when you looked at me, Emma? I saw someone exhausted, alone, fighting to stay invisible because you've learned that's how you survive. His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. I saw myself. We're nothing alike, I whispered, even as something in my chest recognized the lie. Aren't we? You think power and money change the fundamentals? I know what it's like to be invisible, to be underestimated, to fight for every scrap of respect. His voice had gone rough, raw, with something that sounded almost like pain. The difference is I stopped hiding. I took what was mine and dared anyone to challenge me. And what do you want from me? The question came out smaller than I intended. His hand finally made contact, fingers brushing my cheek with shocking gentleness. Everything. I should have pulled away, should have stood up, walked away, quit this job and never looked back. Instead, I sat frozen, trapped by the heat in his eyes and the terrifying flutter in my chest. I can't, I breathed. Whatever you think you see in me, you're wrong. I'm nobody. You're mine. The words landed between us like a bomb, stealing all the oxygen from the space. His thumb traced my jawline, the touch feather light, but burning. You can't just claim people, I protested weakly. I can. I do. His eyes held mine, dark and utterly certain. From the moment that man touched you, from the moment you flinched, something in me decided, you're under my protection now, Emma. Whether you want it or not. That's insane. Perhaps. He pulled back slightly, giving me space to breathe, but his gaze remained locked on mine. But it's done. You'll move out of wherever you're living. What? No. Into one of my properties, somewhere safe, somewhere I know you're protected. You can't just rearrange my life. I stood up too fast, the booth catching my hip, sending a sharp pain through my side. You don't own me. You can't. I'm not asking permission. His voice had gone cold, that gentle mask slipping to reveal steel underneath. Your current building. 3 locks broken, no security, drug dealers on the 2nd floor. You work late nights and walk home alone through streets where women disappear. That ends now. Ice flooded my veins. How do you know where I live? I know everything about you, Emma. He stood as well, towering over me, and I saw the predator beneath the beautiful face. Your lease that's month to month. Your student loans from a degree you never finished. The fact that you eat 1 meal a day and send half your paycheck to pay off your father's debts. He took a step closer, and I retreated until my back hit the wall. I know you're alone. I know you're struggling. And I know that if I don't protect you, no one else will. Tears burned behind my eyes. Rage, fear, and something more dangerous I refused to name. You had me investigated. I had you researched. There's a difference. No, there isn't. My voice cracked, too loud in the quiet corner. You invaded my privacy. I made sure you were exactly who I thought you were. His hand came up to cage me against the wall, his body a wall of heat inches from mine. Someone good, someone real, someone worth protecting. I don't need protecting. Yes, you do. His voice dropped to a near whisper, but the intensity burned. You just don't know it yet, but you will, Emma. When men stop grabbing you, when you stop jumping at shadows, when you can sleep without 3 locks on your door and a knife under your pillow. His eyes searched mine. Yes, I know about the knife too. A tear escaped, tracking hot down my cheek. He caught it with his thumb, the gesture achingly gentle. Don't cry, he murmured. I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm trying to save you. From what? From the life that's slowly killing you. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my temple. Let me take care of you, Emma. Let me give you what you need. And what do you get in return? I forced the question past the lump in my throat. Men like you don't give without taking. His smile was sharp as broken glass. Smart girl. What I get is you. Your time, your attention, your presence in my life. I get to know you're safe, that you're cared for, that when I close my eyes at night you're sleeping somewhere secure. That's all? For now. He pulled back, giving me room to breathe. But his eyes promised more. I'm a patient man, Emma. I can wait for the rest. My mind reeled, trying to process the insanity of what he was offering, or demanding. A gilded cage, protection that felt like possession, safety that came with chains. What if I say no? I whispered. His jaw tightened, and for a moment I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by that careful control. Then you say no. I won't force you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into my trembling hand. But the offer stands. When you're ready, and you will be ready, Emma, you call this number. Anytime. Day or night. He stepped back, releasing me from the cage of his presence. I sagged against the wall, my legs weak. Think about it, he said softly. But don't think too long. The world is dangerous for women like you. And I'd hate for something to happen before you accepted my help. It wasn't quite a threat, not quite a promise. Something in between that made my stomach twist. He turned to leave, his guards materializing around him like shadows coalescing. At the edge of the section, he paused and looked back. "One more thing, Emma. That apartment of yours? The locks will be fixed by tomorrow morning. Consider it a gift. No strings attached." Then he was gone, taking his dark energy and dangerous promises with him. I stood against the wall for a long moment, clutching his card, my heart racing and my mind spinning. The restaurant seemed too bright suddenly, too normal, like I'd been pulled from a dream or a nightmare back into mundane reality. But the card in my hand was real. The heat of his touch still lingered on my skin. And somewhere deep in my chest, beneath the fear and confusion, something treacherous whispered that maybe, just maybe, I wanted to call that number. I looked down at the simple black card. No name, no company, just a phone number embossed in silver, and I knew, with terrifying certainty, that eventually I would use it. The only question was how long I could resist. I didn't call. For 2 weeks, I carried that card in my apron pocket like a talisman, or a curse. My fingers would find it during slow moments, tracing the embossed numbers while my mind replayed his words, his touch, the dangerous promise in his eyes. But I didn't call. True to his word, my apartment locks were replaced. I came home from a double shift to find 3 gleaming deadbolts installed, industrial grade and impossible to break. No note, no explanation. Just silent proof that Dante Marchetti kept his promises, and that his reach extended everywhere, even into my pathetic sanctuary. I should have felt violated. Instead, I slept through the night for the first time in months. He didn't come back to Costello's, not the next Friday, not the Friday after. The corner booth remained empty, a dark void that I avoided looking at even as I felt its pull. Giovanni reassigned me to general sections, and life returned to the exhausting grind of double shifts and aching feet and customers who looked through me. Except now I knew what it felt like to be seen. The 3rd week, everything changed. It started innocuously enough, a Tuesday lunch shift, sparse crowd, the kind of slow day where minutes dragged like hours. I was wiping down tables when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me step into the kitchen hallway and answer. "Hello?" Silence. Then breathing. Heavy, deliberate. "Hello?" I repeated, my skin prickling. "Emma Torres." A man's voice, rough and unfamiliar. "You made a very powerful enemy." My blood turned to ice. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to give you advice. That protection you think you have, it's made you a target. Marchetti's interest has painted a bullseye on your back," a dark chuckle. "Sleep well, little bird. We'll be seeing you soon." The line went dead. I stood in the hallway, phone clutched in my shaking hand, my heart trying to break through my ribs. Terror crashed over me in waves, cold, paralyzing, absolute. The walls seemed to close in, the kitchen sounds fading to white noise. A target. Because of him. Because I'd caught his attention, accepted his help, carried his card like a secret. My fingers found that card now, pulling it from my pocket with trembling hands. The silver numbers gleamed under the fluorescent lights, offering salvation or damnation, maybe both. I dialed before I could talk myself out of it. 1 ring. 2, then a voice I didn't recognize. "Yes?" "I need to speak to Dante." My voice shook. "Tell him it's Emma. Tell him..." My throat closed. "Tell him I got a call. Stay where you are." The line disconnected. I leaned against the wall, sliding down until I sat on the grimy floor, my uniform bunching around my thighs. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time had lost meaning, everything narrowing to the spike of adrenaline in my veins and the desperate hope that I hadn't just made everything worse. My phone rang. Same unknown number as before. Terror paralyzed me. I stared at the screen, watching it vibrate in my palm. "Answer it." Dante's voice came from directly above me. I screamed, phone clattering to the floor. He stood in the hallway like he'd materialized from shadows. No guards visible, just him in dark slacks and a charcoal shirt, his hair slightly disheveled. He'd never looked more dangerous or more real. "How did you..." I gasped. "You were just..." He crouched in front of me, his movements fluid and predatory. "Answer the phone, Emma." With shaking hands, I retrieved it and pressed answer, bringing it to my ear. Did you call your protector? That same rough voice, now laced with amusement. Good girl. Let him know what's coming. Let him know that everyone he cares about is— Dante plucked the phone from my hand with lightning speed, his expression utterly calm. Vitale. His voice was soft, almost pleasant. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find everyone you love, and I'm going to show you what happens when someone threatens what's mine. A pause. You have 12 hours to leave the city. After that, you're a dead man walking. He ended the call and pocketed my phone in one smooth motion. Then his attention focused entirely on me, and the intensity nearly stopped my heart. Are you hurt? His hands moved over my arms, my shoulders, checking for injuries with clinical efficiency. Did anyone approach you? Touch you? No, My voice broke. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called. I didn't know what else. You did exactly right. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Listen to me, Emma. This is my fault. I should have anticipated this. I should have protected you better. Who was that? What did I do to— Nothing. You did nothing. Fury flickered across his features, quickly controlled. Vitale is a competitor, a parasite who's been testing my patience for months. He saw an opportunity to hurt me and took it. His thumb stroked my cheekbones, the gesture at odds with the violence in his words. That was his last mistake. I don't understand any of this. Tears spilled over, hot and shameful. I'm just a waitress. I'm nobody. Why would anyone— Because you're not nobody to me. He pulled me against his chest, and I went without resistance, too frightened and overwhelmed to maintain any pretense of strength. His arms wrapped around me, one hand cradling the back of my head, and despite everything— the danger, the insanity, the wrongness of it all— I felt safe. And now everyone knows it, which means the rules have changed. I breathed in his scent, let the steady beat of his heart calm my racing pulse. What rules? You can't go home. Not to your apartment. Not anywhere you've been before. Vitale knows where you live, where you work, probably where you buy your morning coffee. His voice was matter of fact, discussing logistics while his hand stroked my hair with surprising gentleness. You're coming with me. Now. No arguments. I should have protested. Should have clung to some shred of independence, of normalcy, but fear overrode pride. Okay. He pulled back slightly, studying my face with those dark, fathomless eyes. Okay? I don't have a choice, do I? You always have a choice, Emma. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. But I'm asking you to choose me, choose safety, choose survival. For how long? However long it takes. He stood, pulling me up with him, his hands steady on my waist. Could be weeks. Vitale will either run or die, and either way, you'll be safe again. And then what? I just go back to my life like nothing happened? His jaw tightened. We'll discuss that when the time comes. Right now, we need to move. He guided me through the kitchen, one hand at the small of my back, his body positioned slightly in front of mine, protective, possessive. The kitchen staff barely glanced up, long accustomed to strange comings and goings. Giovanni appeared from his office, took one look at Dante's expression, and nodded silently. No questions. No protest. Just acceptance of whatever Dante decreed. Outside, a black SUV waited at the curb. Windows tinted so dark they looked like sheets of obsidian. The rear door opened as we approached, and I caught a glimpse of cream leather interior and the familiar bulk of guards in the front seats. Get in. Dante's voice had shifted, becoming the command of a man used to absolute obedience. I climbed into the vehicle, my legs weak, my mind spinning. He slid in beside me, and the door closed with a heavy thunk that sounded terrifyingly final. The locks engaged automatically, trapped. The SUV pulled into traffic with smooth precision, and I watched through the tinted windows as my normal life, the restaurant, the familiar streets, the illusion of control, disappeared behind us. Where are we going? My voice sounded small in the leather-scented quiet. Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one will think to look. His hand found mine, lacing our fingers together with shocking intimacy. Somewhere I can keep you close. I looked down at our joined hands, his larger, marked with faint scars, radiating heat and strength. Mine small and calloused and trembling. The contrast was stark, almost obscene. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good. Fear will keep you alert." He squeezed my fingers gently. "But I need you to trust me, Emma. Can you do that?" Could I? Trust a man I barely knew, who'd invaded my privacy, rearranged my life, claimed ownership of me like I was a possession? A man whose world was violence and power and secrets, but he'd also protected me, fixed my locks, come when I called. And the warmth of his hand in mine felt like an anchor in a storm. "I don't know," I whispered honestly. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Fair enough. Then trust this. I will never let anyone hurt you. Not while there's breath in my body." The conviction in his voice sent shivers down my spine. Why? Why me? He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. "When I was 16, I watched my mother get gunned down in the street. Wrong place, wrong time, caught in crossfire from a war that had nothing to do with her," his eyes fixed on something distant, something painful. "She was invisible, insignificant, nobody's priority, and she died because no one thought she was worth protecting." My breath caught. "Dante, I swore that day I'd never be powerless again, that I'd become someone who could protect the people who mattered." His gaze snapped back to mine, intense and burning. "You matter, Emma. From the moment you looked at me with those tired, wary eyes, you mattered, and I will burn this entire city down before I let what happened to my mother happen to you." Tears blurred my vision. The raw honesty in his words, the pain beneath the power. It cracked something open in my chest. "I'm sorry about your mother. Don't be sorry. Be safe." He released my hand only to wrap his arm around my shoulders, pulling me against his side. "Rest. We have a long drive ahead." "Where?" "No more questions tonight. Just rest." Against every instinct, I let my head rest against his shoulder. His heartbeat thrummed steady and strong beneath my ear, and the solid warmth of him slowly dissolved the last of my adrenaline, leaving only exhaustion in its wake. The city lights blurred past the windows, colors bleeding together, neon reds and yellows, the white glare of headlights, the deep purple of the evening sky. Each mile took me further from everything I knew, everything familiar. But Dante's arm stayed firm around me, his other hand resuming those gentle circles on my palm, and somewhere between terror and surrender, I felt my eyes growing heavy. "I've got you," he murmured against my hair. "Sleep, Emma. You're safe now." And despite everything, the danger, the insanity, the complete upheaval of my existence, I believed him. My eyes drifted closed as the SUV carried us into the unknown, into a future I couldn't predict or control. The last thing I registered was the press of Dante's lips against my temple, feather-light and achingly tender. "Mine," he whispered, so soft I might have dreamed it. Finally mine. Darkness pulled me under, and for the first time in 3 years, I fell asleep feeling protected instead of afraid, even if the protection came wrapped in chains. I woke to silence, and sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a disorienting moment, I didn't know where I was. The bed beneath me was impossibly soft, wrapped in sheets that felt like liquid silk against my skin. The room around me was enormous, all clean lines and muted grays, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life. A modern chandelier hung from the vaulted ceiling, crystals catching the morning light and scattering rainbow fragments across the walls. Memory crashed back. The phone call. Dante appearing like a dark angel. The SUV carrying me away from everything I knew. I sat up too fast, my heart hammering. I was still in my work uniform, wrinkled and smelling faintly of garlic and stress sweat. Someone had removed my shoes and covered me with a cashmere throw. Through the windows, I saw nothing but trees, dense forest stretching in every direction, no neighbors, no roads visible. Isolated. Hidden. Safe or trapped. Maybe both. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Before I could respond, the door opened and a woman entered, middle-aged, stern-faced, carrying a tray laden with breakfast. She wore simple black clothing and moved with efficient purpose. "Good morning, Miss Torres. I'm Mrs. Chen. Mr. Marchetti asked me to bring you breakfast and show you to the bathroom." Her accent was slight, her tone professional, but not unkind. There are clothes in the closet, all your size. Mr. Marchetti will join you for lunch at 1 o'clock. She set the tray on the bedside table and gestured to a door I hadn't noticed. The bathroom is through there. Take your time. You're safe here. Before I could ask the 1,000 questions crowding my tongue, she was gone. The door closing with a whisper-soft click. I stared at the breakfast. Fresh fruit. Pastries that looked handmade. Coffee in a delicate porcelain cup that steamed gently. My stomach growled, betraying me. When had I last eaten? Yesterday's lunch shift, probably. I devoured the food with shaking hands, barely tasting it, driven by hunger and nerves. Then I explored the bathroom, which turned out to be larger than my entire studio apartment. Marble everywhere, a shower that could fit 5 people, a tub deep enough to drown in. Bottles of expensive products lined the shelves. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, all in scents I recognized from high-end department stores I'd never shopped in. The hot water felt like absolution. I stood under the spray until my skin turned pink, washing away the restaurant smell, the fear sweat, the lingering sense of violation from that phone call. But I couldn't wash away the reality of where I was or why. The closet held an entire wardrobe in exactly my size. Jeans, sweaters, dresses, all tasteful and expensive. Nothing revealing. Nothing that screamed mistress. Just quality clothes for a normal woman. The thoughtfulness of it disturbed me more than overt seduction would have. He'd planned this, known I'd end up here eventually. I chose jeans and a soft gray sweater, then spent the morning exploring my gilded cage. The house was massive, 3 floors of contemporary luxury, nestled in what appeared to be endless private forest. Large windows offered views of nothing but trees and sky, no guards visible. But I felt watched anyway, cameras probably, hidden in the elegant architecture. At exactly 1 o'clock, I found my way to the dining room. Dante sat at the head of a long table, sunlight illuminating him like a Renaissance painting. He'd changed into dark jeans and a black Henley that clung to his frame, more casual than I'd ever seen him, but no less commanding. He was reading something on his phone, his expression focused and cold. Then he looked up and saw me, and his entire face transformed. Emma. He stood immediately, pocketing the phone. You slept well? 14 hours, apparently. I hovered in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. Mrs. Chen told me. You needed it. Come sit. He pulled out the chair to his right, not at the opposite end of the table, but close, intimate. Are you hungry? I had breakfast. Then have lunch anyway. You're too thin. His eyes traveled over me with an assessment that felt almost clinical. When's the last time you ate 3 full meals in a day? Heat crept up my neck. I eat enough. You eat 1 meal and survive. There's a difference. He served me himself, piling food onto my plate from the dishes spread across the table. Roasted chicken, vegetables that looked garden fresh, bread that filled the air with yeast and warmth. Here, you'll eat properly. You'll rest. You'll remember what it's like to be taken care of. I stared at the plate, emotions churning. Gratitude, resentment, confusion, and something dangerously close to longing. You can't just fix my life by feeding me. I can try. He sat back, his wine glass loose in his hand, watching me with those penetrating dark eyes. Eat, Emma, please. The please undid me. I picked up my fork and ate, and the food was incredible, rich and flavorful, and clearly prepared by someone who knew their craft. Dante watched every bite with satisfaction that bordered on possessive. Tell me about the phone call, he said after a few minutes. Everything you remember. I recounted it, watching his expression darken with each detail. By the time I finished, his knuckles were white around his wine glass. Vitali is being dealt with, he said, his voice carrying the same deadly calm I'd heard in the restaurant hallway. He won't bother you again. No one will. What does that mean? Dealt with. It means you don't need to worry about it. That's not an answer. His eyes met mine, and I saw something flicker there. Approval, maybe. No, it's not, but it's the only one you're getting. Some things are better left unknown, Emma. Trust me on that. How can I trust you when you won't tell me anything? Because I'm keeping you alive. He set down his glass with controlled precision. Because I'm keeping you safe while men far more dangerous than Vitale circle like sharks, looking for any weakness they can exploit. And right now, you're my weakness. The confession hung between us, raw and unexpected. I never asked to be, I whispered. No, you just existed. Looked at me with those eyes. Flinched when some bastard put his hands on you. His jaw clenched. And something in me broke, Emma. Something I've kept locked down for years. The need to protect, to possess, to keep something pure and real in a world made of lies and blood. I set down my fork, appetite fleeing. I'm not a thing you can keep, I know. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his intensity pinning me in place. But I'm going to try anyway, because the alternative, letting you go back to that life, to being invisible and alone and one bad day away from disaster, that's not acceptable to me. So what am I supposed to do? Just stay here forever? Be your... what? Your kept woman? Your pet project? Pain flashed across his features, quickly masked. You're supposed to be safe. Everything else we'll figure out together. Together. I laughed bitterly. Like I have any say in this, you do. He reached across the space between us, his hand open on the table, offering, not demanding. You can leave any time you want. I'll have you driven anywhere, set up with new accommodations, protection from a distance. Say the word, Emma, and I'll let you go. I stared at his hand, at the scars marking his knuckles, the strength in those long fingers. You're lying. I'm not. Test me. My heart pounded. Fine, I want to leave. Take me back to the city. Drop me at a hotel. I'll figure out the rest. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me with those fathomless eyes. All right. I'll have Marcus bring the car around. You can be gone within the hour. I waited for the catch, the threat, the revelation that this was all manipulation. But he just sat there, patient and still, giving me the choice he'd promised. And I realized with dawning horror that I didn't want to leave. The admission stuck in my throat, too terrifying to voice. Because wanting to stay meant accepting this. The isolation, the danger, the complete upheaval of everything I'd known. It meant accepting him in whatever dark world he inhabited. It meant surrender. I hate you, I whispered, tears burning. I know. His voice gentled. But you're not leaving, are you? No. The word tasted like defeat and relief in equal measure. God help me, no. He closed his hand, pulling it back, and the ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then we understand each other. I don't understand anything. Not you, not this, not why. Because you saw me, Emma. He stood, moving around the table with predatory grace until he stood beside my chair. Really saw me. Not the reputation, not the fear, not the carefully constructed image. You looked at me like I was just a man, and I haven't been just a man in a very long time. He crouched beside my chair, bringing us eye level, and the vulnerability in his expression stole my breath. This close, I could see flecks of gold in the dark brown of his eyes, could count the faint lines at their corners, could smell cedar and smoke and something uniquely him. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know how to be what you want. I want you to be exactly who you are. His hand came up, cupping my cheek with devastating tenderness. Stubborn, scared, strong, real. His thumb brushed my lower lip. I want you to heal, to rest, to remember what it feels like to not carry the weight of survival alone. And then we see what happens. No pressure, no expectations beyond safety and honesty. His eyes searched mine. Can you give me that? Time to prove I'm more than the monster you think I am? Are you? More than a monster? His smile was sad, self-aware. Probably not. But for you, I'd like to try. The honesty undid me. I leaned forward until my forehead rested against his, our breath mingling in the small space between us. This is insane. Completely. His hand slid into my hair, cradling my skull. But sometimes insanity is the only sane response to an insane world. We stayed like that for a long moment, balanced on the knife's edge between resistance and surrender. Then he pulled back, standing with fluid grace. "Come, I want to show you something." He led me through the house and out onto a massive deck overlooking the forest. The view was breathtaking, autumn colors painting the trees in fire. Mountains rising in the distance, sky so blue it hurt. A path wound down through the trees, disappearing into shadow and mystery. "This property has been in my family for 3 generations, Dante said, his hand finding mine, lacing our fingers together with casual intimacy. "My grandfather built this house as a refuge. Somewhere away from the city, the business, the constant threat. Somewhere to remember what peace felt like. It's beautiful. It's yours. For as long as you need it." He turned to face me, his expression serious. "I meant what I said, Emma. No expectations. This isn't about trapping you or controlling you. It's about giving you space to breathe, to figure out what you want without fear dictating every choice. What if what I want is impossible? Like what? Like a normal life. A safe life. A life where I'm not connected to." I gestured helplessly at him. "To all of this. Then when this is over, when Vitale is handled and the threat passes, you can have that." Pain flickered in his eyes. "I'll miss you like hell, but you can have it." The admission hit me harder than any demand could have. He meant it. Genuinely meant it. This powerful, dangerous man was offering me an exit, a future, even though it clearly cost him something to do so. "I don't understand you," I breathed. "You will, given time." He pulled me closer, his arms wrapping around my waist, and I let myself sink into his warmth. "For now, just accept that you're safe, that someone cares whether you live or die, whether you eat or starve, whether you sleep peacefully or wake up terrified." I buried my face in his chest, breathing him in, letting his heartbeat calm my racing thoughts. "Okay. Okay? Okay. I'll stay. I'll try. My voice caught. "I'll trust you, as much as I can." His arms tightened around me, and I felt him press a kiss to the top of my head. That's all I ask. We stood like that as the sun climbed higher, warming the deck, burning away the morning chill, and for the first time since that phone call shattered my world, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. Dangerous, fragile, terrifying hope. And I had the sinking feeling that Dante Marchetti was going to become much more than my protector. He was going to become my undoing. 3 weeks passed in a strange suspension of reality. Days blurred into each other, marked by morning coffee on the deck, afternoon walks through the forest, evenings spent in the vast library where Dante had collected what seemed like every book ever written. Mrs. Chen cooked meals that made me remember food could be pleasure, not just fuel. I gained weight. Color returned to my cheeks, and the permanent knot of tension in my shoulders slowly unwound. And Dante was always there, not smothering, not demanding, just present. He worked from the house, his office door usually open so I could hear the low rumble of his voice during calls. He ate meals with me, asked about my day, taught me chess in the evenings with patient humor when I lost repeatedly. He never pushed for more than I was willing to give, never crossed the invisible boundaries I'd drawn, but the tension between us built like a storm gathering strength. It was in the way his eyes followed me across rooms, the careful distance he maintained, as if afraid one touch would shatter his control. The quiet intensity when I laughed at something he'd said, like he was memorizing the sound. The protective hand at my back when we walked the forest paths, his body angled to shield me from threats that existed only in his mind. I was falling for him, slowly, terrifyingly, inevitably. On the 22nd day, everything changed. I woke to raised voices, rare in this peaceful sanctuary. Dante's office door was closed, but even through the heavy wood I could hear the argument. "Liability we can't afford," an unfamiliar male voice growled. "She's seen too much, knows too much. You're thinking with your cock instead of your head. Watch your mouth." Dante's voice was deadly quiet. "You're talking about the woman I'm going to marry." The words hit me like a physical blow. I froze outside the door, my hand pressed against the wall for balance. "Mary?" The other man laughed harshly. "You've known her a month. This isn't love, it's obsession. And obsessions get people killed." Then I'll kill anyone who threatens her. No hesitation, just flat certainty. She stays. She's protected. And when this is finished, she'll have the choice to stay or go. But while she's here, while she's mine, no one touches her. Are we clear, Vincent? A long silence. Then, Crystal, but when this blows back on you, don't say I didn't warn you. Footsteps approached the door. I fled down the hallway, my heart racing, Dante's words echoing in my skull. The woman I'm going to marry. I made it to the library before the tears came. Hot, confused, terrified tears. He couldn't mean it. It was posturing, protecting his reputation, explaining away his inexplicable fixation on a nobody waitress. Men like Dante Marchetti didn't marry women like me. Except the conviction in his voice suggested otherwise. I was still crying when he found me 20 minutes later, curled in the window seat overlooking the forest, afternoon light painting everything gold. Emma. He crossed to me immediately, concern etched into every line of his face. What happened? Are you hurt? I heard you. The accusation came out broken, talking to Vincent. About me. He went very still. How much did you hear? Enough. I swiped at my tears angrily. You can't just decide to marry me, Dante. That's not how this works. That's not... I know. He sank onto the window seat beside me, careful to leave space between us. I know that sounded insane, possessive, controlling. Because it is all those things. Yes. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. But it's also true. From the moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. Like finding a missing piece I didn't know I'd lost. His eyes found mine, raw and honest. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Emma. I'm not asking you to make promises you're not ready for. But I need you to know that's where my head is. Where my heart is. So you can decide if you want to stay or run while you still can. Why me? The question I'd asked before, but needed answered again. Why not some socialite from your world? Someone who understands the violence and danger. Someone who fits? Because fitting is easy. You challenge me. Make me want to be better than what I am. He shifted closer, his hand hovering near my face. Can I touch you? The request, the permission sought, made something in my chest crack open. I nodded. His palm cupped my cheek, and I leaned into it without thinking. I've built my life on fear and power, he said softly. Made people respect me through force and reputation, but you looked at me with compassion. Saw past the monster to whatever human remains underneath. How could I not fall for that? This is crazy, I whispered, even as my hand came up to cover his, completely. His thumb traced my cheekbone, but I've never been sane when it comes to you. I'm scared. Of me? Of this. Of what it means. Of... My voice broke. Of wanting it too much. His eyes widened slightly, hope flickering in their depths. You want this? Want me? The vulnerability in his question destroyed my last defenses. Yes, God help me, yes. The kiss happened inevitably, like gravity finally claiming what it had been pulling toward all along. His lips met mine with devastating gentleness, a question and a promise wrapped together. I melted into him, hands fisting in his shirt, tears still wet on my cheeks. He kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus, like nothing existed beyond this moment, this connection. His hand cradled my skull, the other arm wrapping around my waist, pulling me against him until no space remained between us. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you, Emma Torres. I know it's too soon and too much and probably sounds like madness. But I do. Completely. Irrevocably. That is insane, I breathed. But I was smiling through tears. Say it back or don't. I just needed you to know. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, the corner of my mouth. Whatever you're ready for, that's what we'll do. No pressure. No. I love you too. The words tumbled out before fear could stop them. I don't understand it and I'm terrified, and this is probably going to end in disaster, but I love you. His smile transformed his face, making him look younger, lighter, almost boyish. Yeah? Yeah. I laughed wetly. We're both insane. Probably. He pulled me fully into his lap, and I went willingly, curling against his chest, but at least we're insane together. We stayed like that as the sun tracked across the sky, holding each other in the golden light, finally admitting what had been building since that first electric glance across a crowded restaurant. The next 2 weeks were a revelation. Dante remained protective, possessive, but now the careful distance disappeared. He'd pull me into his lap while he worked, press kisses to my temple while I read, hold my hand across the dinner table like he needed the contact to breathe. We talked for hours about his mother's death, my parents' accident, the violence of his world, and the invisibility of mine. He showed me his scars, literal and figurative. I showed him mine, and slowly, impossibly, we built something real from the ashes of our broken pasts. On a crisp October morning, Dante found me on the deck with my coffee, watching mist rise from the forest like spirits ascending. "Vitale's gone," he said without preamble. "Left the country 3 days ago. He won't be back." Relief and dread warred in my chest. So it's over? The immediate threat? Yes. He joined me at the railing, his shoulder brushing mine. "You're safe now. Free to go back to the city, to your life, to whatever you choose." The offer hung between us, and I realized this was the test. The moment of truth. He'd promised me freedom, and now he was delivering it. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want you to stay." His voice was rough with emotion, not because you're hiding or scared or have no other choice, but because you choose me, choose us, choose this life we could build together. I turned to face him fully, taking in the vulnerability in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the railing like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. "I choose you," I said simply. "Not the safety, not the house or the protection or the escape from my old life. You, Dante, just you." He exhaled like I'd released him from a curse, pulling me into his arms with desperate relief. "Thank God. I was prepared to let you go, but it would have destroyed me. Then it's good I'm staying." I pulled back enough to see his face. "But I have conditions. Anything. I want to work. Not at the restaurant, but something. I need purpose beyond being your... what do I even call myself? My partner, my equal, my future wife. When you're ready." He brushed hair from my face, and I agree. "We'll find you something meaningful. You're too smart and capable to waste your talents. I want honesty. About your business, the dangers, all of it. No more protection through ignorance." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "That's harder. But yes, you deserve to know what world you're choosing. And I want a real relationship. Not you making all the decisions. Not me just accepting whatever you decree. Partnership, like you said. Real partnership. Done." He cupped my face in both hands. "Anything else?" "Marry me." He blinked, shock replacing certainty. "What?" "You said you wanted to. That I was the woman you'd marry. Racing. So marry me. Not someday. Not when everything's perfect. Now. Soon. Before I lose my nerve or reality crashes back in." "Emma." His voice cracked with emotion. "You're serious. Completely. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing us. Why wait?" He kissed me hard, lifting me off my feet, spinning me in a circle that made me laugh against his mouth. When he set me down, there were tears on his cheeks. "Yes." He breathed. "God. Yes. I'll marry you tomorrow if you want. Let's start with next week. Small. Just us and whoever needs to be there legally. Perfect." He kissed me again, slower this time, pouring everything he felt into the connection. "You've made me the happiest man alive, Emma Torres. I promise I'll spend every day trying to deserve you. Just love me. That's all I need. Always. Forever. Until my last breath." We were married the following Saturday in the house library, with Mrs. Chen and Marcus as witnesses and a judge who owed Dante favors. I wore a simple ivory dress Mrs. Chen had somehow produced, and Dante wore a dark suit that made him look like sin personified. When he slid the ring onto my finger, a platinum band set with diamonds that caught the afternoon light, I realized I was crying, happy tears this time, joy tears, tears of relief and love, and the overwhelming sense of finally being home. "I love you," he murmured as the judge pronounced us married. "My Emma, my wife, mine, yours," I agreed, pulling him down for a kiss. "And you're mine. Always." Life wasn't perfect after that. Dante's world was complicated and sometimes dangerous. I learned more about his business than I'd ever wanted to know. Met people who terrified me, navigated social circles that looked at me with suspicion and curiosity. But I also found my place, started a foundation helping women escape poverty and dangerous situations, using Dante's resources and connections to build something meaningful. Learned that being his wife didn't mean losing myself. It meant having the security to discover who I really was. And every night, I fell asleep in his arms, safe and loved and chosen. A year later, standing on the deck watching our first snowfall together, Dante wrapped his arms around me from behind and pressed a kiss to my neck. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this life, choosing me." I turned in his arms, meeting those dark eyes that had seen me when I was invisible, that had promised protection and delivered love. "Not for a second," I said honestly. "You saved me, Dante, in every way a person can be saved. You saved me first." He rested his forehead against mine. "You saw me, really saw me, and you stayed anyway. Always, I promised, for as long as we both shall live. And beyond," he added, his smile soft and genuine and utterly beautiful. Outside, snow fell like a benediction, covering the forest in pristine white. Inside, wrapped in warmth and love, and the arms of the man who'd claimed me with a glance and kept me with devotion, I finally understood what home felt like. Not a place. Not safety or security or escape from fear. Home was being seen, being chosen, being loved exactly as you are. And I was finally, irrevocably home.